Just 5 weeks ago, Fractal Design released the Pop series of PC cases, which came in 3 sizes and a total of 20 different SKUs. Today, Fractal released 8 more SKUs which add Micro-ATX and Mini-ATX versions to their Define 7 and Meshify 2 case series, and I have the Meshify 2 Mini, so today we'll be taking a look at how it compares to its bigger brothers, specifically the Meshify 2 Compact and its cousin, the Pop Mini Air. Is this a welcome or necessary member of the Fractal family? Let's find out.
It's the money.
The Meshify 2 Mini is one of 5 sizes in the Meshify 2 series and fits in between the Meshify 2 Compact and the Meshify 2 Nano. It measures 399 by 205 by 406 millimeters, giving it a total volume of 33.2 liters, which is about 9 liters less than the Meshify 2 Compact and about 3 liters less than the Pop Air Mini. The Meshify 2 Mini is designed for Micro-ATX motherboards and can also hold Mini-ATX builds. The case accommodates graphics cards up to 306mm or 331mm if you remove or raise the front fan, CPU coolers up to 167mm, and power supplies up to 165mm or up to 200mm without the drive cage installed. The Meshify 2 Mini, like its bigger counterparts, features the side panel latch system for single-handed removal. Okay, maybe you should use 2 hands, and the hinged and removable front mesh panel with removable mesh filter. There's also a full-length bottom mesh filter. The top panel of the case can be removed, revealing another removable mesh filter, and the top fan/radiator bracket can be removed from the case. The Meshify 2 Mini comes with 2 pre-installed Fractal Dynamic X2 fans, a 1000 RPM 140mm in the front, and a 1200 RPM 120mm in the rear. Optionally, the front of the case can accommodate 2 140 or 3 120mm fans, or up to a 280mm radiator. The top of the case can accommodate up to 2 140 or 2 120mm fans and up to a 240mm AIO. There are 2 3.5-inch drive sleds in a cage that can be moved forward to allow room for radiators and fans, or slid back to allow for longer power supplies. The cage can also be removed and a 120mm fan mounted in its place. There are 2 vertically mounted 2.5-inch SSD trays that can alternately be mounted as a single horizontal tray or on top of the PSU shroud. Additionally, there's from 15mm to the back of the case and up to 25mm in the front of the case for space for cable management behind the motherboard tray. On the back of the case, there is a removable PSU bracket so the power supply can be installed from the rear of the case, and 4 bridgeless PCIe expansion slots. The front I/O consists of individual 3.5mm headphone and microphone jacks, and up to 20GB USB-C port, the power and reset buttons, and 2 USB 3.2 Gen 1 Type A ports. The case comes in black or white with clear or dark tempered glass side panels, and this particular black with dark TG has an MSRP of $99 US. In order to validate all these features, I built a mid-range PC in the enclosure with a 12th gen Intel CPU and an RTX 3060 Ti Founders Edition. All the components I used were well within the maximum limits of the case, and I had no issues with them. However, if you're planning on using a top-mounted radiator, you will be limited to low-profile memory, as there's only about 38mm of clearance. And unlike the Pop Mini, this case does not include offset brackets to allow for taller memory. Additionally, during thermal testing, I discovered a top-mounted 140mm fan impacted the CPU power cable. I was able to make it fit, but it's putting a lot of downward stress on the connector and is not something I'd keep in place long term. As far as cable rounding and management, there is ample room on the top and front of the motherboard with the 4 grommeted pass-throughs, sufficient for pretty much any build. However, unlike the larger Meshify Compact, which has a large grommeted horizontal cable pass-through, the Mini has a vertically oriented pass-through, which works well for PCIe cables, but doesn't provide convenient access to much of the other bottom motherboard connectors such as USB 3, fan and RGB headers, power and LED cables, or the front panel audio cable, which for some reason on this case is very short. I tried to route it through the far rear bottom tiny pass-through and the large bottom pass-through, and in both cases it wouldn't reach the header. The only way I could get it to reach was through the front bottom pass-through across the entire bottom of the motherboard, and then it just fit with absolutely no slack. As far as cable management, there was plenty of room behind the motherboard tray, and I was able to use the included Velcro straps to tie all the cables down and manage everything pretty well without much effort or time wasted. Let's take a look at the thermals, and the data is telling me that this case is right in the thermal Goldilocks zone. Not too big, not too small. If you look at the CPU thermal results, the first line shows us the 20-minute torture test with the PC on an open air test bench, and it actually has the highest temps recorded. With the PC in the case in its stock configuration, the temps drop, removing the front filter from the panel, and the temps drop another degree. And then adding another two 140mm fans, one on the front and one on the top as an exhaust, and both the front and top filters removed, we get a 9% drop in average temps over the test bench. Looking at GPU temps, we see the same trend, just not as significant. This has both to do with the components I'm using in the build and the design and physics of the case itself. I'm not going to go into detail about the components and their cooling efficiency, only to say your results may vary depending on the components you put in this case. But as far as the case and why the temps drop, my educated guess is that the internal volume of the case is just small enough that the airflow from front to back completely evacuates the warm air and replaces it with cool air. If it was larger, like the Meshify 2 Compact, some of that warm air recirculates in the case, mixing with the cool air, so it's slightly less efficient. But it's not so small that all the components are crammed together without enough room for sufficient airflow like some small form factor cases. But again, if you put larger, hotter components in here, you'll get to a point where the airflow just can't evacuate all the heat and cooling efficiency will drop. So after the tech specs, build notes, and testing, how does the Meshify 2 Mini compare to the other Meshify 2 cases, and how does it stack up to last month's release, the Pop Mini? Well, first, in regards to the Meshify 2 series, the only one I haven't had hands-on with is the Nano, but they are all essentially the same case in different sizes with some exceptions. But my general rule in case selection applies. Pick the PC enclosure for the PC it's enclosing. If you have a Micro-ATX motherboard, then the Mini is probably the way to go. If you're trying to decide between a full ATX or Micro-ATX build based on the case, I don't think there's enough difference between the cases to influence that decision one way or the other. If space is your concern, then it's a matter of determining where you need that space. In total footprint, the Mini only takes up about 8% less space, but is 69mm shorter than the Compact, which actually works for me as I scratch built my desk with space for just a Mini ATX case. Now, if you're deciding between the Pop Mini or the Meshify 2 Mini, there are several factors to consider. The advantage for the Pop are, of course, number one, the two 5¼ drive bays, the only modern case with that feature. It also comes with 3 RGB fans and a built-in controller. I also prefer the innovative drive sleds in the Pop that can hold both a 3.5 and a 2.5 drive together. And the Pop does allow for taller RAM with the included offset brackets if using a top-mounted radiator or AIO, and it is about $10 cheaper. The Meshify 2 has the more detailed design with the beveled edges and the more pronounced geometric mesh pattern. The steel mesh top panel is a much cleaner look than the magnetic dust filter on the Pop. There are the builder features like the removable PSU and top radiator fan brackets, and having housed my high-end workstation in the Meshify 2 for so long, my favorite feature was the ability just to easily swing the front door open during long and intensive operations to get a big boost in airflow and cooling. But it's also probably not the best choice for those who prefer top-mounted AIO cooling. Overall, I think the Fractal Meshify 2 Mini is a solid case, but it has a few shortcomings. One quite literally short. I also think while the case is competitively priced, and despite the cooling performance, the case should come with at least 3 stock fans like its bigger brother, and if you're going to build in this case, I would definitely recommend picking up both a second 140mm fan for the front and a 120mm for the top to really maximize the airflow and cooling efficiency of this case. Ultimately, I'm not sure if the Mini has a necessary part in the Meshify 2 lineup. I think most people looking for a compact build would be more inclined to go with the more flexible compact, while those looking at small form factor will be looking at the Nano. This is further complicated with the existence of the very versatile Pop Mini in the family. For any tech specs I may have missed and for current pricing of the Meshify 2 Mini, check the link in the description. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe while you're down there, and I'd love to hear from you. What do you think of the new, more streamlined format for case reviews? Spend a lot of the time scouring the stats, studying the viewership peaks and valleys, finding out where you, the viewer, were engaged and where you were dipping out, and focusing the review on the info y'all are looking for and doing that in a timely manner. I'd love to know what you think, so comment below and I hope to catch you in the next one.